my finger hovering over the doorbell, watching through the tall windows as my son's wife directed caterers around what used to be her parents' home. What was now my home. Candace had no idea I was coming. She definitely had no idea I owned every brick, every chandelier, every inch of imported tile under her expensive heels. The Christmas wreath on the door still had the Brennan family monogram. I'd have to change that. I pressed the bell and heard it echo through the foyer. Through the frosted glass, I saw Candace's silhouette freeze mid-gesture. She wasn't expecting anyone else. The guest list for her exclusive Christmas celebration was carefully curated, and it certainly didn't include her husband's mother. It never did. When she opened the door, her face went through about 5 different expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion. Annoyance. That fake smile she put on like expensive jewelry. Then back to annoyance when she remembered she didn't have to pretend with me. Ellen. She didn't call me Mom. Never had, not in 12 years. This is a private family event. I thought we discussed this on the phone. We did, I said, adjusting my purse on my shoulder. That's why I'm here. I don't have time for this today. She started to close the door. Darius will call you later. I put my hand on the door. Not pushing, just resting it there. Candace, honey, I think you're confused about something. You're standing in my house. Her perfectly microbladed eyebrows drew together. Excuse me? My house, I repeated, pulling out my phone. Would you like to see the deed? It transferred to my name 6 weeks ago. I've been giving you time to make other arrangements. But since you invited me to Christmas here, I thought I'd accept. The color drained from her face in a way that would have been satisfying if my heart wasn't breaking for my son, for my grandchildren inside who were about to watch their world shift. That's impossible, she whispered. My parents own this house. Your parents defaulted on a loan, sweetie. A loan that I held through my investment portfolio. When they couldn't pay, the property came to me. It's all legal. My lawyer made sure of that. I smiled gently, the way I used to smile at her when she first started dating Darius, back when I still thought she might learn to love our family for who we were, instead of what she thought we should be. Now, are you going to let me in? Or do I need to exercise my legal right as the homeowner to enter my own property? Let me back up. I need to tell you how we got here, to this moment on Christmas Eve, with me standing on steps that now belong to me while my daughter-in-law's world crumbles like a sugar cookie. It started the way it always started, with a phone call 3 weeks before Christmas. I was at my small apartment in the senior community on Westbrook Avenue, the one with the cheerful yellow walls and the community garden I'd helped plant. I was making sweet potato pie for the church bake sale, and my phone rang with my son's number. Mama, Darius said, and I could hear the strain in his voice immediately. My baby boy, 42 years old now, a partner at his law firm, and still he sounded like a child when he had to deliver bad news. I need to talk to you about Christmas. My hands stilled on the rolling pin. What about Christmas, baby? Candace wants to host at her parents' house this year. It's going to be formal, really formal. Her whole family will be there and some business partners and... He trailed off. I waited. I'd learned patience over 73 years of living. She thinks maybe it would be better if you sat this one out, just this year. The kids will come visit you the day after, I promise. There it was. The same conversation we'd had every year since Candace came from money and decided that her husband's mother, who lived modestly in a senior apartment and volunteered at the church food bank, wasn't the image she wanted to project. I see, I said quietly. And what do you think, Darius? The pause told me everything. My son, who I'd raised by myself after his father passed when he was 6. My son, who I'd worked double shifts at the hospital to put through college. My son, who used to tell me I was his hero. I think, he said slowly, that maybe it's easier this way. You know how Candace gets when things aren't perfect. And Mama, you know you're not really comfortable around her family anyway. All their talk about investments and vacation homes and I'm just a retired nurse who lives in a one-bedroom apartment, I finished for him. Too poor for their Christmas, too embarrassing for their photographs. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant, baby. It's what she means every year when she finds a reason I can't come. Last year I was recovering from a cold. Year before that, there wasn't enough space at the restaurant she booked. But we both know what she's really saying. I heard him sigh. I'm sorry, Mama. Don't apologize, Darius. Just tell your wife that I understand perfectly. I hung up before he could hear my voice break. I stood in my little kitchen for a long time, looking at the pictures on my refrigerator. Zion and Amara, my grandchildren, gap-toothed and beautiful. They were 9 and 7 now, growing up in Candace's world of private schools and tennis lessons and summer homes, growing up learning that their grandmother wasn't good enough. That was the moment I decided. No more testing, no more waiting. I'd been living modestly by choice, you see. After my husband died, I'd received a substantial settlement from his life insurance and a wrongful death lawsuit. I'd invested it wisely, lived carefully, and watched it grow. By the time I retired, that nest egg had become $3 million sitting in a trust fund, managed by one of the best financial advisors in the state. I'd told myself I was being smart, saving for emergencies, making sure I'd never be a burden to my son. But if I'm honest, I was also testing whether the people in my life loved me, or for what I could give them. Candace had failed that test every single year, and now my son was failing it too. I called my financial advisor, Gerald, the next morning. Ellen, he said warmly. He was a member of my church, had been managing my portfolio for 15 years. What can I do for you? Remember that defaulted loan you told me about last month, the Brennan estate? Before we continue, please tell us where you're watching from so we know how far our stories reach, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. There was a pause. Ellen, are you sure? That's your daughter-in-law's family. I'm very sure. Make the purchase. And Gerald, don't tell anyone. Not yet. The Brennans had mortgaged their mansion to invest in Candace's husband's brother's tech startup. The startup failed. They'd been quietly drowning in debt for 2 years, keeping up appearances while the banks circled. When their loan got sold to a private investment firm, my investment firm, they had no idea who was really holding their paper. I spent the next 6 weeks preparing. I met with lawyers. I made sure everything was legal, airtight, unbreakable. I notified the Brennans through proper channels that ownership had transferred, giving them 60 days to vacate. They had 30 days left when I got that phone call from Darius. That's when I decided to arrive on Christmas Eve instead of waiting until after the holidays. Now here I was, watching Candace's face as reality set in. You're lying, she said, but her voice shook. This is some kind of scam. You couldn't possibly afford the $3 million trust fund that I've had for over 20 years? I asked gently. The one I never told your husband about because I wanted to make sure he loved me, not for my money? That trust fund? I stepped forward, and she automatically stepped back. Honey, I've been poor before. Real poor. After my husband died, I knew what it meant to choose between groceries and electricity. But I worked hard, invested smart, and lived modestly. Not because I had to, because I chose to. I walked past her into the foyer, into the house that now belonged to me. The Christmas tree in the great room was at least 12 feet tall, decorated in silver and white. Very elegant, very cold. Where are my grandbabies? I asked. Ellen, you need to leave right now, or I'm calling the police. Call them, I said calmly. I'll wait. When they get here, I'll show them my deed, and they'll explain to you that you're actually the one who needs to leave. But please, do call. I'm sure your business partners would love to see that scene. Her hand was on her phone, but she didn't dial. I could see her mind working, calculating, trying to find an angle. "Grandma?" I turned to see Amara standing in the doorway to the living room, wearing a velvet dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Behind her, Zion peeked around the corner. "Baby girl!" I opened my arms, and Amara ran to me. Zion followed, both of them hugging me like they hadn't seen me in months. Because they hadn't. Candace had been too busy to bring them for visits. "You came," Zion said. "Mom said you couldn't come because I was busy," Candace interrupted sharply. "Children, go back to the living room, now." "But Grandma just got here," Amara protested. "I said now." The children's faces fell. They slowly pulled away from me, and I saw something in their eyes that made my decision crystallize into absolute certainty. They were scared. Not of me. Of their mother's reaction to me. "It's okay, babies," I said softly. "Go on. Grandma's not going anywhere. Not this time." As they walked away, Amara looked back at me with hope in her eyes. Candace waited until they were out of earshot, then turned to me with pure venom in her eyes. "What do you want? Money? Is this blackmail?" "I don't want your money, honey. I have my own." I set my purse down on the console table, the one I now owned. I want my family. I want to spend Christmas with my grandchildren, and I want my son to remember who he is and where he came from. "Darius!" Candace called out. "Darius, get in here now!" My son appeared from the dining room, and when he saw me, his face went white. "Mama, what are you doing here?" "She's claiming she owns this house," Candace said. "Tell her she's crazy. Tell her to leave." Darius looked between us, confused. "What is she talking about?" I pulled out the folder I'd brought with me. Legal documents, all official, all stamped and notarized. I handed them to my son. "Your wife's parents defaulted on their mortgage. I held the loan. Now I own the property. It's all there, baby. Every document, every signature, every legal transfer. Your mama's not as poor as your wife thought." I watched him read, watched his eyes get wider with each page. When he looked up at me, I couldn't read his expression. $3 million, he whispered. "You've had $3 million this whole time?" "And never told you," I confirmed. "Because I needed to know, baby. I needed to know if you'd love your poor mama who lived in a little apartment and made sweet potato pie for church bake sales. Or if you'd only love a mama who could buy you things and impress your wife's family." Darius's hand holding the papers started to shake. Behind him, I could see Candace's parents entering the foyer, dressed in formal wear, their faces confused at the commotion. "What's going on here?" Candace's father, Harold, demanded. He was a tall man, used to commanding rooms. "Ellen, this is a private event." "Hello, Harold. Patricia." I nodded to Candace's mother. "I was just explaining to your daughter that as of 6 weeks ago, I'm the legal owner of this property. You should have received the notices." Patricia's hand went to her mouth. "Oh, God. Harold, is this—" "We thought we had more time," Harold said, his commanding voice suddenly small. "We were arranging alternative financing. The holidays, you understand. Everything moves slower." "You had 60 days, I said gently. "I've been more than fair. But I'm here now, and I'm going to spend Christmas in my home with my grandchildren. You're welcome to stay for dinner, all of you, as my guests." The silence in the foyer was so complete I could hear the Christmas music playing softly in the other room. Silent night. How fitting. Candace's face had gone from white to red. "This is insane! Darius, do something! She can't just—" "She can," Darius said quietly, still staring at the papers. "It's all legal." "Mama, why did you—" "Because I'm tired, baby." And suddenly, I was. 73 years of tired, all at once. I'm tired of being treated like I'm not good enough. Like I'm someone to be ashamed of. I'm tired of my own son choosing his wife's comfort over his mother's dignity. I'm tired of my grandchildren learning that love has a price tag and their grandmother doesn't measure up. A door opened behind us and more guests started filing in from the dining room, drawn by the raised voices. Candace's brother, her sister-in-law, business partners in expensive suits, all of them stopping, staring, sensing drama. "So, here's what's going to happen," I continued, my voice steady. "I'm going to spend Christmas Eve with my grandchildren. I'm going to tell them stories about their grandfather, about their daddy when he was young, about where they really come from. And tomorrow morning, we're going to open presents together as a family. The family I raised. The family that seems to have forgotten what family means." "And then what?" Candace asked, her voice shaking with rage. "You're going to kick us out? Make us homeless? Your own son?" "No, honey. I'm going to give you a choice." I looked at Darius, my baby boy, who looked lost and small despite his expensive suit. "You can stay here, in this big house that never felt like a home anyway. Keep pretending to be something you're not. Keep teaching your children that money matters more than love. Or," I paused, letting the weight of the moment settle, "or you can come home with me. To my little apartment that's too small and too poor for your wife's Instagram photos. We can make sweet potato pie and watch the kids play in the community garden and remember what it felt like to be a family. And then, maybe, we can talk about what comes next." Darius opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Candace grabbed his arm. "Don't you dare," she hissed. "Don't you dare choose her over everything we've built, over our life, over me." And that's when my grandbaby Amara's voice cut through the tension like a knife. "Daddy, why is Mommy always so mean to Grandma?" Every adult in the foyer froze, out of the mouths of babes. Zion appeared next to his sister, his young face serious. "Is it true, Grandma? Do you really own this house now?" Before I could answer, before anyone could answer, Candace's phone rang. She glanced at it, and her face went even paler. "It's the bank," she whispered to Harold. "Dad, it's the bank. They're calling on Christmas Eve." And that's when I knew. Whatever call that was, whatever they were about to say, it was going to make this situation so much worse. Or so much better, depending on how you looked at it. Harold grabbed the phone from her and stepped into the next room. We all stood there, frozen, waiting. The Christmas music kept playing. Joy to the world now. The irony wasn't lost on me. When Harold came back, his face was gray. "They've called the other loans too," he said to Patricia. "All of them. The cars, the beach house, everything. They're saying because we defaulted on the primary residence. We're in breach of all the loan covenants. They're demanding immediate payment." Patricia swayed on her feet. Her sister-in-law rushed to steady her. Candace turned to me, and for the first time, I saw fear instead of anger in her eyes. Real, desperate fear. "You planned this," she breathed. "You planned all of this." "No, honey," I said softly. "Your parents planned this when they mortgaged everything they owned for a failed business venture. I just stopped catching them when they fell." "Mama," Darius said, and his voice cracked. "Mama, please. Tell me what you want. Tell me how to fix this." I looked at my son, really looked at him. Saw the boy who used to hold my hand in church, the teenager who used to help me carry groceries, the young man who promised me at his wedding that nothing would ever come between us. And I saw what he'd become, what I'd let him become by staying silent, by accepting the scraps of affection they threw me, by pretending everything was fine. "I want you to choose, baby," I said. "Right here, right now. Choose who you are." The front door opened behind me. I didn't turn around, but I heard Candace gasp. "Who invited them?" she demanded. I turned then and smiled. Standing in the doorway was Pastor Williams from my church, along with his wife. Behind them, I could see more people. My friends, my church family. The community that had loved me when I had nothing and never asked for anything in return. I did, I said. If I'm going to have Christmas in my new home, I'm going to do it right. Pastor Williams, thank you for coming. Wouldn't miss it, Sister Ellen, he said with a warm smile. When you said you needed blessing for your new home, I gathered some folks. More people filed in. Sister Roberta with her famous mac and cheese, Brother Jerome with his guitar, young Amani from the youth group carrying a basket of rolls. They filled the cold, elegant foyer with warmth and noise and love. Candace looked like she was going to faint. Her carefully curated Christmas was dissolving into something she couldn't control. Darius, I said one more time, choose. My son looked at his wife, at her parents, at the business partners watching with barely concealed interest in the drama, at his children who were now peeking around corners wide-eyed. Then he looked at me, at Pastor Williams, at the community that had helped raise him, that had been there for his first day of school, his college graduation, his wedding, though Candace had tried to keep that ceremony small and private. And I saw something shift in his eyes, something remember, something wake up. I choose, he started. But that's when we heard the sirens outside, getting closer. And someone started pounding on the door with the kind of authority that meant badges and serious consequences. Candace's brother went pale. The SEC investigation, he whispered. Oh God, Dad, is this about the SEC investigation? The pounding on the door got louder. Through the frosted glass, I could see dark suits and badges. My church family instinctively moved closer together, forming a protective circle in the foyer. They'd seen enough in our community to know what men in suits at the door could mean. SEC investigation? I asked quietly, looking at Harold. What SEC investigation? Harold's face had gone from gray to green. It's nothing. A misunderstanding about some investments. It's being handled. Open up! Federal agents! The voice from outside was not patient. Candace's brother, whose name I'd just learned was Terrence, started backing toward the rear of the house. Darius caught his arm. Don't run, my son said, his lawyer instincts kicking in even through his shock. That makes everything worse. I walked to the door and opened it myself. If this was my house now, I'd be the one to answer it. 3 agents stood on the porch, credentials already out. The lead agent was a black woman, mid-40s, with tired eyes that said she'd seen too much. We're looking for Harold and Patricia Brennan, she said. We have a warrant for their arrest. On Christmas Eve? Pastor Williams stepped forward beside me. What are the charges, officer? The agent glanced at him, then at the crowd of church folks in the foyer, then back at me. I saw her taking it all in, the formal party setup, the black church community, the obvious tension. Securities fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering, she said. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, you need to come with us. Patricia made a sound like a wounded animal. Harold stood frozen, all his commanding presence gone. I'll call our lawyer, Terrence said, pulling out his phone. You might want to call yours too, the agent said, looking at him. We have questions for you as well. That's when Candace started screaming, not crying, screaming, high-pitched, hysterical screaming that had my grandchildren running into the foyer in terror. This is her fault, Candace shrieked, pointing at me. She did this! She's destroying our family! This is all because of her! Amara and Zion ran straight to me, wrapping their arms around my waist. I held them close, feeling them shake. Ma'am, the agent said to Candace, her voice firm but not unkind. You need to calm down. There are children present. She took our house. She ruined Christmas. Now she's having my parents arrested. Actually, I said quietly, I think your parents managed that part themselves. I just bought a house. They're the ones who apparently committed fraud. The agent looked at me with new interest. You're the new owner of this property? As of 6 weeks ago, Ellen Rivera. Everything's legal and documented. I'm going to need to ask you some questions too, Mrs. Rivera, about how you came to own this property and what you know about the Brennans' financial situation. I'll answer anything you need, I said. But first, can someone please get these babies away from this chaos? Sister Roberta immediately stepped forward. Come on, sweethearts. Let's go to the kitchen and get some of that mac and cheese. You hungry? Amara looked up at me with frightened eyes. Grandma, what's happening? Grown-up problems, baby girl. Nothing for you to worry about. Go with Sister Roberta. I promise you, Grandma's not going anywhere. Zion didn't want to let go of my hand. But Mom's screaming. I know, baby. Sometimes when grown-ups are scared, they forget how to act right. But you and your sister don't need to see this. Go on now. Reluctantly, they let Sister Roberta lead them away, though they kept looking back at me. The agents moved in to arrest Harold and Patricia. Candace's screaming had dissolved into sobbing. The business partners who'd been invited to dinner were quietly trying to slip out the door, not wanting any association with what was happening. Darius stood in the middle of the foyer looking like his whole world was tilting. Because it was. Mama, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Did you know about this? About the fraud? I knew they defaulted on their loans. I knew they'd made bad investments. The fraud? I shook my head. That I didn't know, but I can't say I'm surprised. People who care more about appearances than truth tend to make choices that catch up with them. One of the agents was reading Harold his rights. Patricia was crying quietly, all her elegant composure shattered. Candace tried to go to her mother, but Darius held her back. Don't, he said. Let them do their job. Let them? Candace whirled on him. Your mother destroys our family and you're just going to let them? My mother bought a house, Darius said, and I heard something new in his voice, something harder. Your parents committed fraud. Those aren't the same thing. The lead agent finished with Harold and Patricia and turned to me. Mrs. Rivera, I'm Agent Simone Winters. Can we speak privately? Before we continue, if this story resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our next story. I led Agent Winters to the library, my library now, while Pastor Williams stayed with the church folks in the foyer. Through the walls, I could hear Candace still crying, still raging. Walk me through how you purchased this property, Agent Winters said, pulling out a notebook. I explained it all. The life insurance settlement from my husband's death 30 years ago. The wrongful death lawsuit. The careful investments. Gerald, my financial advisor. The loan portfolio we'd purchased that included the Brennan mortgage. You didn't know about the fraud? She asked. I knew they were in financial trouble. I didn't know it was criminal. Agent Winters, I'm 73 years old. I'm not some criminal mastermind. I bought a house from people who couldn't pay their mortgage. She studied me for a long moment. Why this house specifically? Because my daughter-in-law has spent 12 years telling me I'm not good enough for her family. Because my son forgot where he came from. Because I wanted them to understand that poverty isn't the same as worthlessness. I met her eyes. That wrong? A small smile tugged at her lips. No, ma'am. That's not wrong. That's just good timing. She asked me a few more questions, confirmed my contact information, and then stood to leave. We'll need to do a full interview, but right now, we're focused on the Brennans. For what it's worth, Mrs. Rivera, I don't think you did anything wrong. And between you and me? She lowered her voice. I've met a lot of families like theirs. All show, no substance. Sometimes the truth needs to come out. After she left, I sat in the library for a moment, gathering myself. This had gotten bigger than I'd expected. I'd wanted to teach my son a lesson, to show him what he was choosing. I hadn't expected the whole house of cards to collapse quite so spectacularly, but maybe it needed to. Maybe all of it needed to come crashing down so something real could be built in its place. When I returned to the foyer, Harold and Patricia were being led out in handcuffs. Their fancy friends were long gone. Candace was on the floor in her expensive dress, sobbing. Terrence was on the phone with a lawyer, his voice shaking. And Darius was standing with our grandchildren, who'd come back from the kitchen when they heard their other grandmother crying. He had his arms around them both, and he was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. The agents left, the door closed, and suddenly the house was very quiet except for Candace's sobbing. Pastor Williams cleared his throat. "Well," he said in that gentle way he had. "This isn't quite the Christmas blessing I expected, but the Lord works in mysterious ways. Ellen, what do you need?" What did I need? I looked around at the wreckage of Candace's perfect Christmas, at my son holding his children, at my church family waiting patiently for direction, at the daughter-in-law who'd spent 12 years making me feel small. "I need dinner," I said. "It's Christmas Eve, and I'm not letting all this drama ruin it for these babies. Sister Roberta, you brought mac and cheese. Who else brought food?" One by one, my church family started listing what they'd brought: mac and cheese, collard greens, sweet potato pie, cornbread, ham. It wasn't the fancy, catered meal Candace had planned, but it was real food, made with love. "Then, let's eat," I said. "Candace, you can join us or not. That's your choice. But this is still Christmas Eve, and these children deserve better than watching their family fall apart." Candace looked up at me with mascara running down her face. "How can you be so calm? Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I bought a house. Your parents committed fraud. I'm going to ask you one more time to stop blaming me for choices other people made. My children are going to watch their grandparents go to jail. Your children have been watching their grandmother get excluded from their lives for years," I said quietly. "Which hurt do you think runs deeper?" She didn't have an answer for that. Darius finally spoke. "Kids, go help set up the dining room. We're going to have dinner." "But Dad," Zion started. "Go, please." When the children left, Darius looked at his wife. "You need to pull yourself together. Our kids are scared. They don't understand what's happening, and no matter what else is going on, they need to see us being strong." "Strong?" Candace laughed bitterly. "We just lost everything. My parents are being arrested. We're probably going to lose our house, our cars, everything. And you want me to be strong?" "We haven't lost everything," Darius said, and something in his voice made me look at him sharply. "We lost things. Things your parents bought with money they stole. Things we never needed in the first place." "How can you say that?" "Because my mama raised me in a one-bedroom apartment after my daddy died, and I never went hungry, never felt poor, because she worked double shifts and still made it to every school event, because she taught me that love doesn't come with a price tag." His voice broke. "And I forgot that." "I let you make me forget that." Candace stared at him. "So this is my fault now? Everything is my fault?" "I didn't say that. But Mama was right. We made choices. We chose appearances over substance. We chose your family's approval over my family's dignity. We taught our kids that money matters more than character. I gave our children a good life." "You gave them things," I said softly. "That's not the same as a good life." Candace turned her anger back to me. "You have no right to judge me. You, sitting on millions of dollars while playing poor. You lied to everyone." "I lived modestly and never told anyone I was poor," I corrected. "There's a difference. I never asked anyone for money, never complained about what I didn't have. I was genuinely happy with my life. Can you say the same?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. Terrence came back into the foyer, his face pale. "The lawyer says Dad and Mom are looking at serious time. The fraud goes back years, tens of millions of dollars. He swallowed hard. They were running a Ponzi scheme. The silence that followed was deafening. "A Ponzi scheme," Darius repeated slowly. "Your parents were running a Ponzi scheme. They needed money to maintain appearances after some bad investments. They started borrowing from new investors to pay old investors. It spiraled. The lawyer says the FBI has been investigating for months. I felt sick. Not because I'd bought the house, but because my grandchildren's other grandparents were criminals, because the family my son had married into was built on lies. How many people did they hurt? I asked. Terrence looked at me with haunted eyes. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Retirement accounts, college funds, people lost everything. Sister Roberta appeared in the doorway. Ellen, the children are asking if everything's okay. I straightened my shoulders. Tell them yes. Tell them we're going to have dinner now. Mama, how can we have dinner? Darius asked. How can we just sit down and eat like nothing happened? Because those babies didn't do anything wrong. Because it's Christmas Eve. Because life keeps going even when the world falls apart. I looked at my son. I learned that when your daddy died. Learned that grief and shock and fear don't mean you stop living. You keep going. You keep loving. You keep showing up. I walked toward the dining room, then turned back. Anyone who wants to join us is welcome. Anyone who wants to leave can leave. But I'm going to have Christmas dinner with my grandchildren, and I'm going to make sure they know that family isn't about money or houses or keeping up appearances. Family is about showing up, about love, about doing right, even when everything goes wrong. Pastor Williams smiled. Amen to that. The church folks started moving toward the dining room. Darius stood there for a moment, torn between his wife on the floor and following us. Then he reached down and offered Candace his hand. Come on, he said quietly. Get up. Whatever happens next, we face it together. She looked at his hand like she didn't recognize it. Then slowly, she took it and let him pull her up. We all made our way to the dining room. The table that Candace had set so carefully with expensive china now held mismatched dishes from my church family. The fancy centerpiece had been moved aside for platters of real food. The silver candlesticks looked out of place next to Sister Roberta's Tupperware. It was beautiful. Amara and Zion sat on either side of me. They were quiet, subdued, still scared by everything they'd witnessed. You know what? I said to them as everyone found seats. I think it's time I told you about your grandfather, your daddy's father. You never got to meet him, but he was something special. Really? Amara asked quietly. Really. He was a postal worker. Carried mail every day, rain or shine. People on his route loved him because he always had time to chat, always remembered their names and asked about their lives. He didn't make a lot of money, didn't have a fancy car or a big house, but everyone who knew him felt richer for it. Zion leaned against me. How did he die? Accident on his route. A car hit him while he was delivering mail. It was sudden, unexpected, the hardest day of my life. I put my arms around both of them. But you know what got me through it? Community. All the people on his route came to the funeral. Some of them told me they'd been saving money for months to afford to get there. They brought food. They brought love. They showed me that your grandfather's real wealth wasn't in a bank account. It was in the lives he touched. I looked up and saw Darius watching me with tears in his eyes. That's what I tried to teach your daddy, I continued. That who you are matters more than what you have. That character beats money every single time. That the measure of a man isn't his house or his car or his bank account. It's how he treats people. Especially the people who can't do anything for him. Is that why you didn't tell us about your money? Amara asked with the blunt honesty of children. Because you wanted to see if we loved you anyway? Out of the mouths of babes. Smart girl, I said softly. That's exactly why. I love you anyway, Grandma, she said, hugging me tighter. Even if you were actually poor. You're the best grandma. Zion nodded agreement. You make the best sweet potato pie. I looked across the table at Darius and saw him break. My strong, successful son put his face in his hands and cried. Not quiet tears. Deep, gasping sobs of someone who'd been holding everything in for too long. Candace sat frozen beside him, not touching him, not comforting him, just staring at her empty plate. Pastor Williams stood and cleared his throat. "Before we eat, let's bow our heads. Lord, this has been a difficult evening. Truth has come to light in ways that hurt. But we thank you for bringing us together. We thank you for Sister Ellen's strength and wisdom. We thank you for these children who remind us what really matters. And we ask that you guide this family as they figure out what comes next. Bless this food, bless this house, and bless everyone at this table. In Jesus' name, amen." "Amen," we all echoed. We ate in relative quiet, passing dishes, letting the children fill the silence with occasional questions about the food or comments about school. Normal things, safe things. I watched Candace pick at her plate, watched Darius try to compose himself, watched my church family make conversation to ease the tension, and I wondered if I'd done the right thing. If exposing all this pain had been worth it. If my grandchildren would understand someday why I'd done what I'd done. Then Amara looked up at me with those bright eyes and said, "Grandma, can we come visit your apartment sometime? Like, actually visit?" "Anytime you want, baby girl." "And can we make sweet potato pie together? You always said you'd teach me, but we never had time." "All the time in the world now," I promised. After dinner, as the church folks were cleaning up and preparing to leave, my phone rang. It was Gerald, my financial advisor. "Ellen, I just heard about the Brennan arrests. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Gerald. Shaken, but fine. I need to tell you something. The FBI contacted me. They want to interview me about the loan purchase. They're investigating whether you knew about the fraud." My stomach dropped. "I didn't. I know. And I told them that. But Ellen, they're looking at everything. They're going to go through your finances, your phone records, your emails. They're going to try to prove you had inside knowledge. Let them look. I have nothing to hide." "I know. But I wanted you to be prepared. This is going to get messy." After I hung up, I sat on the couch in the living room, my living room, and closed my eyes. The Christmas tree lights twinkled. Somewhere in the house, I could hear my grandchildren laughing at something Brother Jerome was showing them. Darius came and sat beside me. We didn't speak for a long time. Finally, he said, "I'm sorry, Mama." "I know, baby. I got lost. I let Candace's family's money and lifestyle make me think we needed to be like them. I let her make me ashamed of where I came from." "Of you," his voice cracked. "I'm so ashamed of that." "Then don't make the same mistake again," I said. "That's all I ask. Don't let shame rule you. Learn from it. Grow from it. Be better." "What do I do now? About Candace? About the kids? About everything?" "I can't tell you that, son. That's a choice you have to make." He nodded. "I think I need to take the kids and go stay somewhere else for a while. Give Candace space to figure out what she's going to do about her family. Give myself space to think." "You can stay with me. My apartment's small, but we'll make it work." He laughed weakly. "Mama, you own a mansion now. Why would we stay in your apartment?" "Because this house is beautiful, but it's built on fraud money. It's tainted. I don't want my grandchildren sleeping under a roof that was paid for with stolen retirement accounts." I looked at him. "I'm going to sell it. Give the money to the victims of your in-laws' scheme. It won't be enough to make everyone whole, but it's something." "You're going to give away $3 million? "I'm going to do what's right. That's what your daddy would have done. That's what I should have done from the start instead of playing games." We sat in silence for a while longer, and then Candace appeared in the doorway. Her face was red and swollen from crying, but her voice was steady. "I want a divorce," she said. Darius didn't look surprised. "Okay." "You're not going to fight me?" "Would it matter if I did?" She shook her head slowly. "I can't do this. I can't be married to someone who chooses his mother over me. Who sides with her over my family? Who thinks I'm the villain in all of this? You're not the villain, Darius said quietly, but you're not innocent either, and neither am I. We built our life on the wrong foundation, and now it's crumbling. Maybe that needed to happen. Candace looked at me. Are you happy now? You got what you wanted? You destroyed my marriage. I wanted my son to remember who he was, I said. If your marriage couldn't survive that, maybe it wasn't as strong as you thought. She left the room, and I heard her footsteps going upstairs. Going to pack, probably. Darius leaned his head on my shoulder like he used to when he was a little boy. What now, Mama? Now we start over. We build something real, something honest, something your children can be proud of. That's when we heard the crash from upstairs, followed by Candace screaming. We ran up the stairs, and what we found in the master bedroom made my blood run cold. Candace was standing in the middle of the room, her suitcase open on the bed. But she wasn't packing clothes. She was holding stacks of cash, hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash, hidden in the closet safe. They knew, she whispered, staring at the money. They knew the FBI was coming. They hid all this cash here, in my house, in my closet. Darius pulled out his phone. I'm calling the FBI. No! Candace grabbed his arm. Darius, we could keep it. No one knows it's here. We could go to jail for obstruction, he said firmly. We could lose our kids. We could become exactly like your parents. He pulled away from her and made the call. And as I stood there watching my daughter-in-law realize that her whole world was built on lies, I felt something I didn't expect. Pity. She'd spent 12 years building a life of appearances, 12 years measuring worth by dollar signs and designer labels. And now it was all gone, and she had no idea who she was without it. Agent Winters arrived with a team 30 minutes later. They photographed the cash, counted it, documented everything. Over $2 million, hidden away while the FBI closed in. As they carried it out, Candace sat on the floor of the bedroom, silent now, watching it all disappear. Mrs. Rivera, Agent Winters said to me before she left, I'm going to need you and your son to come in for formal interviews tomorrow. It's Christmas, I said. Yes, ma'am. And there are thousands of people who won't have much of a Christmas because of what the Brennans did. So we work. She was right. Of course she was right. After they left, after Darius took the kids to my apartment, after the church folks finally headed home with promises to check on me tomorrow, I stood alone in the house. My house. Built with stolen money. Decorated with the proceeds of fraud. Every elegant fixture paid for with someone else's retirement fund. I walked through the rooms, turning off lights, and made a decision. Tomorrow, after the FBI interview, I'd call a realtor, sell this place, give every penny to the victims. But tonight, on Christmas Eve, I sat in the living room with just the tree lights on and thought about my husband. About the man who taught me that integrity matters more than money. About the postal worker who touched more lives with his kindness than most rich men ever would. I hope I'm making you proud, I whispered to his memory. That's when I heard the doorbell ring. I looked at my watch. Nearly midnight. Who would be here at this hour? When I opened the door, I found a woman about my age standing on the porch, tears streaming down her face. You're Ellen Rivera? She asked. I am. My name is Winifred Cole. Harold and Patricia Brennan stole my late husband's life insurance money. Everything we saved for 40 years. I lost my house. I've been living with my daughter, sleeping on her couch for 2 years. My heart broke. I'm so sorry. I saw the news about their arrest, about you buying this house. She looked up at the mansion behind me. Is it true? Did you really buy it not knowing what they'd done? I didn't know about the fraud. I swear to you I didn't know. She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. I believe you. I needed to see this place. The house they lived in while people like me lost everything. I needed to see it with my own eyes. Would you like to come in? She looked shocked. Really? Really? It's Christmas Eve. No one should be alone, and I have some pie left over. We sat in the kitchen, my kitchen, and ate sweet potato pie at midnight on Christmas Eve. And Winifred told me about her husband, a teacher who'd saved every penny he could, about losing everything to the Brennan scheme, about the shame and anger and grief. And I told her about my plan to sell the house and give the money back to the victims. That won't fix everything, she said softly. I know, but it's something. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Thank you. After she left, I finally went to bed in one of the guest rooms. I couldn't bring myself to sleep in the master bedroom, not after everything that had happened there tonight. As I lay in the dark, my phone buzzed with a text from Darius. Kids are asleep. They're okay. I'm okay. Thank you, Mama, for everything, for not giving up on me. I smiled in the darkness and sent back a single heart emoji. Tomorrow would bring FBI interviews and legal complications and more fallout. Tomorrow, I'd start the process of unwinding this mess, of making things as right as I could. But tonight, on Christmas Eve, I'd done what I set out to do. I'd reminded my son who he was. And maybe, just maybe, I'd started something bigger than I'd intended, something about truth and justice and making things right. I closed my eyes and slept better than I had in years. Christmas morning came quietly. I woke up in the guest room of the mansion I now owned, sunlight streaming through windows that overlooked a garden I'd never plant. My phone showed dozens of missed calls and messages, but one text stood out, from Darius, sent at 6 a.m. The kids want to come back for Christmas morning. With you. Can we? I texted back immediately. Come home, baby. Within the hour, I heard the front door open. Little feet running through the foyer. Grandma, where are you? I met them at the top of the stairs, and Amara and Zion nearly tackled me with their hugs. Behind them, Darius stood with bags of presents and a tired smile. Merry Christmas, Mama. Merry Christmas, baby. We spent the morning in the living room, just the four of us. I'd sent the church folks home last night, but Sister Roberta had left enough food to feed an army. We ate breakfast casserole and opened presents, simple things I'd bought weeks ago before everything exploded. Books for Amara, a basketball for Zion. Their joy over these modest gifts told me everything I needed to know about what they'd been missing. Where's Mom? Zion asked eventually, his face troubled. Darius set down his coffee cup. She's at Aunt Shanice's house. She needs some time to think about things. But she loves you both very much. That hasn't changed. Is it because of what Grandpa Harold and Grandma Patricia did? Amara asked quietly. Everyone at school is going to know. It's going to be all over the news. My heart ached for her. 9 years old and already worried about shame and reputation. Too much like her mother. Baby girl, listen to me. I knelt down so we were eye level. What your other grandparents did was wrong. Very wrong. They hurt a lot of people. But that's not your shame to carry. You didn't do anything wrong. Neither did your brother. Neither did your daddy. We don't inherit other people's sins. We just decide who we're going to be in spite of them. But kids are mean, Zion said. They're going to say things. Let them, Darius said firmly. And when they do, you hold your head high and you tell them, my daddy taught me that character matters more than money, and my grandma taught me that doing right matters more than looking right. Can you remember that? They nodded. But I could see the worry still there. They were too young for this, but life doesn't care about what's fair. At 10 a.m., my phone rang. Agent Winters. Mrs. Rivera, I need you and your son at the field office by 1 p.m., non-negotiable. It's Christmas Day. Yes, ma'am. And we have about 2,000 victims who'd like their money back before New Year's. So, 1 p.m.? I looked at my grandbabies, then at Darius. We'll be there. Before we continue, Please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Sister Roberta agreed to watch the kids, arriving with enough food to last through New Year's, and a stern warning to stay strong and remember the Lord's got this. The FBI field office was mostly empty on Christmas Day. Just skeleton staff and people working the Brennan case. Agent Winters met us in the lobby and led us to an interview room that smelled like stale coffee and stress. "Before we start," she said, setting a recorder on the table, "you should know that Patricia Brennan is cooperating. She's giving us everything. Names, numbers, accounts, the whole operation. Harold's still trying to lawyer his way out, but it won't work. We have decades of evidence." "How many people did they hurt?" I asked. Agent Winters pulled out a folder. "So far, we've identified 2,847 victims. Total losses are approximately $340 million. The number hit me like a physical blow. $340 million. Life savings, retirements, college funds, dreams. "Dear God," Darius whispered. "The good news is we're recovering assets. Houses, cars, jewelry, art. Patricia's cooperation is helping us find hidden accounts. But most of the money is gone, spent maintaining their lifestyle and paying early investors to keep the scheme going." "What about the cash in the closet?" I asked. $2.3 million. That helps. Your house, the mansion, that helps too. We can seize it as proceeds of fraud and liquidate it for victim compensation." "You don't have to seize it," I said. "I'm selling it voluntarily. Every penny goes to the victims." Agent Winters looked at me with something like respect. "That's appreciated, Mrs. Rivera, but I have to ask, why did you really buy that house? Revenge?" I thought about that. Honestly, a little bit. I wanted my daughter-in-law to understand that she'd been judging me by the wrong measure, that I wasn't less than her just because I lived modestly. But mostly, I wanted my son to wake up, to remember what I taught him about what really matters. Did it work? I looked at Darius, who met my eyes with tears in his. Yeah, it worked. The interview lasted 3 hours. They went through every transaction, every document, every conversation I'd had with Gerald about the loan purchase. They verified that I'd had no knowledge of the fraud, no contact with the Brennans before the purchase, no inside information. By the time we left, it was late afternoon on Christmas Day. Darius and I sat in his car in the parking lot, both of us drained. "What now, Mama?" "Now we go home. We hug those babies, and tomorrow we start rebuilding." But when we got back to the mansion, we found we weren't alone. Candace's car was in the driveway. Through the windows, I could see her inside with the children and Sister Roberta, and she was crying. We walked in cautiously. Candace looked up when she heard us, and I barely recognized her. No makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of designer clothes. "I need to talk to you," she said to me. "Both of you." Sister Roberta took the children upstairs, and we sat in the living room. The Christmas tree lights were on, making everything feel surreal. "My parents called from jail," Candace started, her voice shaking. "They asked me to lie for them, to say I had knowledge of accounts they didn't tell the FBI about, to help them hide more money." She wiped her eyes. "And for about 5 minutes I considered it. Because they're my parents. Because family is supposed to protect family." She looked at me directly for the first time in maybe ever. "Then I remembered what you said last night, about character mattering more than money, and I realized I don't even know who I am without all the things, without the house and the cars and the designer clothes and the image. I'm 38 years old, and I don't know who I am." "So what did you tell them?" Darius asked quietly. "I told them no. I told them I was done lying, done pretending, done building my life on fraud." Fresh tears fell. "They called me a traitor, said I was just like you, Darius, choosing Ellen over family." "I am your family," Darius said. "The kids are your family. My mother is your family, whether you like it or not. Your parents are criminals." "I know," she whispered. "I know that now. And I'm so angry at them. But I'm more angry at myself, for caring so much about what people thought, for treating Ellen like she was beneath us, for teaching our children that worth is measured in dollar signs." She turned to me. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve how I treated you. Not any of it." I'd waited 12 years to hear those words. And now that they were here, I found that the anger I'd been carrying had already started to dissolve. "I forgive you," I said simply. "Not because you deserve it, but because I'm tired of carrying that weight. And because my grandbabies need to see that people can change, that mistakes don't have to be forever." "I don't expect you to forget," Candace continued. "I don't expect everything to be okay right away. But I want to try. I want to learn who I am without all the pretense. I want to teach our kids better, and I want—" Her voice broke. "I want to stay married if Darius will have me, if you'll both give me another chance." Darius looked at me, a question in his eyes. "That's between you and your wife," I said. "I've meddled enough, but I'll tell you what I told you when you got married. Love is a choice you make every day. You choose to show up, choose to forgive, choose to grow together. If you both choose that, then you've got a chance. If not, then no amount of money or houses or perfect Christmases will save you." They talked late into the night while I put the children to bed. Zion and Amara seemed lighter somehow, as if they could feel the shift in the air. "Is Mom staying?" Amara asked as I tucked her in. "I don't know, baby. That's up to your parents to decide." "I hope she does," Zion said from the other bed. "But I hope she's different, like nicer different." "Change takes time," I told them. "But the fact that she wants to try, that's a good start." The next morning, Darius and Candace announced they were going to try counseling, work on their marriage, learn to build something real. "But we're not staying here," Darius said. "This house needs to be sold. We're moving in with Mama until we find something of our own, something we can actually afford on my salary without any family money." "Your apartment?" Candace looked panicked. "All 5 of us in a 1-bedroom? "We'll make it work," Darius said firmly. "And you're going to learn what I should have remembered, that happiness doesn't require square footage." I sold the mansion within 2 weeks. A tech executive bought it for $2.8 million, and every penny went into the Victim Compensation Fund. It wasn't enough to make everyone whole, but combined with other seized assets, it helped. Winifred Cole got $80,000 back. Not enough to replace what she'd lost, but enough to get her own apartment again. When she called to thank me, I heard hope in her voice for the first time. The trial started in March. Harold fought to the end, but Patricia's testimony buried him. They were both sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Terrence got 3 years for helping them hide assets. I attended every day of the trial, sitting in the gallery with other victims. Some of them recognized me from the news. Some thanked me for selling the house. Others just nodded, acknowledging shared pain. On the last day, as the judge read the sentence, I felt something inside me finally release. Justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about validation, about the world saying, yes, what happened to you was wrong. Yes, you matter. Living with Darius, Candace, and the kids in my 1-bedroom apartment was chaos. Beautiful, messy, loud chaos. We took turns sleeping on the pull-out couch. We learned to share 1 bathroom. We cooked together in a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people, let alone 5. And something miraculous happened. We became a family again. Candace learned to cook my recipes. Not catered, not takeout, but real food made with her own hands. She cried the first time she burned the cornbread, and laughed when Zion said it tasted like love anyway. She started volunteering with me at the church food bank. At first, I could tell she was uncomfortable, but slowly, She began to see people instead of circumstances. Began to understand that poverty wasn't a character flaw. 3 months in, she got a job. Not some high-powered position like she'd had before, but a real job at a nonprofit helping fraud victims navigate the legal system, using her business degree to actually help people instead of just making money. "I think I'm good at this," she told me one night as we folded laundry together in the community room. "Like, actually good at something that matters." "You were always good at things," I said. "You just needed to point those skills in the right direction." Darius scaled back his hours at the firm, started taking cases pro bono for people who couldn't afford lawyers, said he'd spent enough years chasing money. The kids thrived. Without the pressure of keeping up appearances, they relaxed into just being children. Amara joined the church youth choir. Zion played basketball in the community league. They made friends with kids from all kinds of backgrounds, learned about real diversity, real life. One Sunday after church, 6 months after that explosive Christmas Eve, Amara tugged on my sleeve. "Grandma, can I ask you something?" "Anything, baby." "Are we poor now?" I looked at my family, my son in his off-the-rack suit, my daughter-in-law in a thrift store dress that she'd altered herself, my grandchildren in clean but simple clothes. At the potluck lunch we were about to share in the fellowship hall, food we'd all helped cook. At the community that surrounded us, people who loved us not for what we had, but for who we were. "No, baby," I said, pulling her close. "We're richer than we've ever been. We just measure it differently now." In July, Darius and Candace found a modest 3-bedroom house in a working-class neighborhood. Nothing fancy, no marble counters or imported tile. Just a solid house with good bones and a backyard where the kids could play. The day they moved in, our whole church family showed up to help. We painted walls and hung curtains and planted flowers. And when it was done, when we all sat on the porch drinking lemonade and watching the kids play in the yard, Candace started crying. "What's wrong?" Darius asked, concerned. "Nothing's wrong," she said through her tears. "This is the first time I've ever felt like I actually earned something, like I deserve the home I'm living in, like it's really mine, not built on someone else's loss." That night, they invited me to dinner in their new home. Candace cooked, still not perfect, but getting better. We sat around their second-hand table, said grace, and ate together as a family. "Mama," Darius said as we cleared the dishes, "I never thanked you properly, for the wake-up call, for not giving up on me, for showing me what I'd become." "You don't have to thank me for loving you, baby. That's what mothers do." "No, I mean it. You could have just walked away, could have written me off as a lost cause, but you fought for me, even when it hurt, even when I didn't deserve it." "Every parent makes sacrifices for their children," I said. "I just made mine loud instead of quiet, made you see what you were choosing." He hugged me tight. "I choose right this time. I promise." The FBI recovered about 60 cents on the dollar for the Brennan fraud victims. It wasn't everything, but it was something. Some people got enough to stabilize. Others at least got validation that what happened mattered. Winifred Cole and I became friends. She started volunteering at the food bank too, and we'd work side by side, 2 women who'd lost and found and lost and found again, helping others do the same. "You know what I realized?" she told me one day as we sorted donations. "Your husband was rich too. Just like mine. Not in money. In character. In the lives they touched. That's the kind of wealth that lasts." "Amen to that," I said. A year after that Christmas Eve, we all gathered at Darius and Candace's house for the holidays. This time, everyone was invited, my church family. Candace's brother Terrence, who'd served his time and was rebuilding his life. Even some of the fraud victims I'd gotten to know. The house was full of mismatched chairs and potluck dishes and the sound of children laughing. The tree was decorated with handmade ornaments Amara had crafted in art class. The presents underneath were modest, meaningful. As I looked around the crowded living room, I thought about that moment a year ago when I'd stood on the steps of the Brennan mansion, about to blow up my daughter-in-law's world. Had it been worth it? All the pain, the exposure, the upheaval? I watched Zion help Terrence set up a folding table, watched Candace laugh at something Sister Roberta said, watched Darius play guitar while Amara sang with the choir kids. Yeah, it had been worth it. Because sometimes love means comfort, and sometimes it means confrontation. Sometimes it means letting people coast, and sometimes it means forcing them to crash so they can learn to truly fly. I'd given my family the hardest gift I knew how to give: truth. And they'd taken that truth and built something real with it. "Grandma," Amara called from across the room. "Come help us with the sweet potato pie. Mom's trying, but she says she still can't get it right." I stood up and made my way to the kitchen, where Candace was staring at a pie crust like it was a complex mathematical equation. "The secret," I told her, putting my arm around her shoulders, "is love. You can't fake it and you can't buy it. You just have to mean it." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Thank you for not giving up on us, for teaching me what real wealth looks like." "Thank you for being willing to learn," I said. As we worked together on the pie, 3 generations of women, learning and teaching and growing, I thought about all the Christmases to come, the traditions we'd build, the memories we'd make, the legacy we'd leave. Not a legacy of money or houses or appearances, a legacy of character, of resilience, of choosing right even when it costs everything. That's the inheritance I'd leave my grandchildren. That's the trust fund that really matters. And it's worth more than $3 million could ever buy. Later that night, as guests were leaving and grandkids were falling asleep on couches, Darius pulled me aside. "I heard from Agent Winters today," he said. "They're closing the case. Said you're officially cleared of any wrongdoing. In fact, she said you're being recognized as a victim advocate. Your donation to the compensation fund was the single largest individual contribution." "I don't need recognition," I said. "I just needed things to be made right." "I know. That's what makes it meaningful." He paused. "Mama, I want you to know, I'm putting together a scholarship fund, in Dad's name, for kids from working-class families who want to go to law school. I'm funding it myself, from my salary, no shortcuts, no family money, just honest work for an honest cause." I hugged my son and felt my heart swell with pride. "Your daddy would be so proud of you, baby. I know I am." As I drove home that night to my small apartment, because yes, I'd kept it, my little haven, I thought about the journey, about the woman I'd been a year ago, testing her family with secret money and quiet hurt. I wasn't that woman anymore. I'd learned that sometimes you have to break things to fix them, that justice sometimes requires confrontation, that love sometimes means letting people face consequences, and I'd learned that real wealth isn't about what you have, it's about who you are when everything else is stripped away. My phone buzzed with a text from Amara. "Love you, Grandma. Thanks for the best Christmas ever." I smiled and texted back a heart. Then I went inside my little apartment, made myself a cup of tea, and sat by my window looking out at the community garden where spring flowers were already starting to push through the winter soil. New growth from broken ground. That's all any of us really are. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. Thank you for listening to the end. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories like this, and tell us in the comments what you think should happen next.